Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, wherever you are in Liberia. We want to say welcome to Liberia Shall Rise. And today's segment we are calling that Healthcare Watch. And the topic for today is establishing or why is medical accreditation needed in Liberia? Private medical accreditation needed in Liberia. We have always asked the question on Healthcare Watch: what are the missing parts in the healthcare system in Liberia? And that's one of those things that are missing. And that's one of those things we want to discuss. If we can recall, in one of Front Page Africa article in March, late March, there was a man arrested in the Jacobtown area who was supposed to be a surgical tech, or they call it in Liberia operational tech. And their job in that field is to actually just give the instrument, the equipment that are used in that area. The job is to clean it, make sure it's sterile, and then when the doctor is operating or the surgeon is operating on a patient, then they give those instruments to the doctor or the surgeon when he's operating. When he say, for example, if you're a mechanic, you say spanner or wrench or whatever, that person hand that to you. That's what a surgical tech does or operation tech does. But this man, instead of doing that, he was performing surgery. And because of that, somebody died. Now, the question is, how many people have died from a medical malpractice? Unqualified person performing a task that he or she is not supposed to be performing. How many Liberians are dying because of that? The reason some of those things are happening is because of lack of accountability. And that is why we are asking that we have private medical accreditation institution established in Liberia so that we can have that check and balance. Those institutions serve just like in a pure democracy, three branches of government. Excuse me, in a pure three branches of government, they behave like the lawmakers, where when the executive is doing something, the lawmakers are the one that will hold that executive accountable. I mean, we know those things are diminishing all over the world now, where those power are being taken away. And the judicial system is there too to check to balance that equation. Now, the private is going to be held accountable by the government or the laws that the government put in place, okay, to give them the instruments or the authority to enforce the standard of jobs that are performed. The accreditation will be the one to organize and check everybody. For example, if I had a laboratory in Liberia, the accreditation institution will come to inspect my area. And during that inspection, they will ask for my staff listing. And when they ask for my staff listing, they will ask for each individual, right? Medical technologist, the one with a bachelor's degree, they want to find out your qualification. And if you have a license to practice, what license do you have? Medical laboratory technician, which is the associate degree, they will ask what license he or she has. So the accreditation institution or the accredited institution will be the one to inspect your area and make sure that everybody is going according to the standards set by the institution or the nation, right? For example, in the United States, in the laboratory field, we have what they call the CLAIR, okay? Clinical Laboratory Improvement Act. That is a law that gave the authority to CAP, College of American Pathology. It gave them the authority, a private institution, to inspect public and private laboratories to make sure they are going in accordance with regulatory guidelines, right? If I call myself a medical or technologist, I should attend the school that is needed. If I want to be performing a certain task in the laboratory, I have to have certain license. And in America, we have the American Society of Clinical Pathology, which we call ASCP. That is the certificate that I have. It's a national certification. And some of them are also regional certification, right? Some people for us can be also state or given certification, or even the hospital provide one too. So for example, I can go to my institution provide certain certificates, but on that certificate is going to indicate that this certificate can only be used at Harris Health System if they are providing for laboratories staff. So if I'm working at Harris Health provide me that certificate, to work there, and I'll have to take tests and meet their requirements. I cannot use that certificate that I got from Harris Health to practice at St. Luke or St. Luke Laboratory if they don't recognize that, or Methodist or Memorial Hermann. I can. However, if I'm licensed in Texas, I can work at any of those institutions. Now, if I'm licensed only in Texas, I cannot use my certificate to practice in Florida. Again, even with the national certification that I have, there are few states that have an exception. Florida is one of those places that I cannot practice as a clinical laboratory scientist. I can't practice there with my ASCP. I'll have to take the Florida ASCP, and California is another one that got an exception. And I think Nebraska is another. So we got few states that do not recognize the national ASCP that I have, right? So if I were to go there and practice, I would have to take their ASCP certification. The same with California and few other states. Okay? So if we have those accreditation agencies, it creates that regulation. It becomes that eye that the government does not have, because they will have the resources to send people to the various institutions to observe what you are doing, and then to make sure you are in compliance with what those regulations are. And that's the importance of this discussion today. And I hope as we go through this, Liberians can start wondering and start thinking, speaking to your healthcare professional, speaking to your lawmakers, speaking to those people who are in position to actually implement some of these things in Liberia, so that we can have trust in our healthcare system. Okay? Because it is very important. It is very important that we have these accreditation agencies, and will save the country money. If I trust JFK, for example, as a hospital, depending on the results that they put out, the laboratory results that they put out, if they can put out a good laboratory result that can give me a proper treatment based on the results, there's no need for me to leave Liberia to go to Ghana for treatment. There is no need for me to go to South Africa for treatment. Okay? There is no need of sending laboratory specimen from Liberia to Ghana, to Sierra Leone, or other places, if we have regulatory agencies that are there to regulate the practices that we have. Ghana has a regulatory agency, and some states in Nigeria have their own regulatory, and they kind of federal ones as well. South Africa, the one that is in South Africa so far, is the one that is recognized internationally. But that does not mean we as Liberians, we cannot develop ours, because regulatory agencies are there to go through, to develop studies, okay, make those studies come to pass. That is develop studies based on, develop regulation based on data collected from studies, right? So for example, if we know malaria is prevalent in Liberia, we have to take the statistics. We got to sometimes look for the region, and based on the region, based on the population, we will make regulatory requirement for those areas and set our ranges, our reference ranges and stuff like that, to make sure that each laboratory that is performing lab watch out for those things. What's the cause? How can we measure syphilis if it is there? Okay. What are the different elements that are needed to make sure that you as a laboratory personnel performing this laboratory test, what are those requirements? What are those identifiers that you are finding to use to put out an accurate result? So far from what I know, there is no private regulatory agency in Liberia. They do have one, or a public regulatory agency that they have in Liberia, that when I met with them about a year ago, I suggested to one of the top members there that it would be good that you, as a public health regulatory agency, to dedicate this to a private institution, and then you will be the eye of the government over those private institutions, making sure that they enforce the rules that you gave them. But that one health regulatory agency that they have in Liberia, mostly they are focused on pharmaceutical medication that go to Liberia. That's what I know. That's what I saw when I asked, right? Those are the things they are focused on. However, they are not really focused on the clinical laboratory side. That is a very important aspect of healthcare. In fact, that's a very sensitive aspect of healthcare. We are the backbone of healthcare. And with that, I just want to pause here and say, happy Lab Week, because our laboratory week is starting of April 20th to the 26th. Okay, so we have, 25th. We have a whole Oh, next week is what? Next week is today is the 12th. So we started the 16th, actually. Sorry. We started next week is lab week for us. Okay. So we're going to celebrate a whole week to celebrate our profession. Okay. So these are things that we do that the world recognizes us for. So I want to say happy lab week to all medical laboratory scientists out there, medical laboratory technicians, pathologists, and the rest of all the team that are either assisting in the lab or performing the duties in the lab. Happy lab week. With that, I would like to reach out to our CEO who will be joining us later, Steve Keller, Dr. Positive, if he can give us a quick theme song and then we can bring him on. Dr. Positive is over to you, sir. Technology is giving us. Okay, so I think technology is giving us some problem, but so with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be going through some PowerPoints that I'm going to show to you to give you some of those things that are needed. Or as you know, technology is a beautiful thing. However, sometimes we have glitches in there, and that can cause some issues that cannot make us go live. But hey, as we go on, let me share my screen here and let us discuss what we're talking about. Okay, so the question is, Liberia healthcare system, what are the missing parts? And we are discussing one of the missing parts today. And that missing part is the need for private medical accreditation in Liberia. Private medical accreditation in Liberia. Okay. And I have just given you a brief kind of synopsis of what we're talking about today. Now, introduction, I say overview Liberia healthcare system, importance of quality healthcare and safety, the role of accreditation in the global healthcare system, and if we can look at Liberia, we can talk about that. So I have a front page Africa article here that was I put out this guy who is the surgical tech or operation tech around the Painesville area who went and performed surgery on somebody and killed the person, right? I can tell you maybe he didn't know his job and he felt that just by watching people, he can perform surgery on an individual and that family lost a life. It is a sad thing that happened, but I think this is where we as Liberians, we need to be very watchful. We need to be very careful on what we are doing. It is about time that we take note of these things on what we can do to create trust in our healthcare system. Look at how much Liberia is losing by sending the president, the vice president, the senators, the representatives, judges, some high level or assisting personnel, and those who can afford to leave the country to go for treatment outside. See how much money we lost every year. How much money we lose every year. We're losing those money. So the government is burning to send people out. Why? Because they do not trust the healthcare system. Then the question is, if you are the one making the laws, you are the one making the rules. If you don't trust the healthcare system, why are you spending people money on those systems? Why are you spending money to go out of the country? So is your life important more than the other millions of people that live in Liberia? Those are questions that we need to be asking ourselves. Okay, but it is not fair, in my opinion, for those people to pay the price of leaders going out to get treatment, but the citizen cannot get the same treatment that is there. Okay, if you think the country is good for treatment, if you think JFK is good to give treatment to me, then it should be good for you as well, because we are paying you to serve or to create laws or to create the platform or to create the environment that every citizen to prevent this person from killing innocent people based on medical.
So, Mr. Sapolosia, I came to join you. Before you go to your next slide, I wanted to introduce myself as the real Dr. Positive today in my whole outfit. You see, I put the glasses on now. River says Pro, see the real Dr. Positive. I got my skeptoscope, if I can say the name correctly. But again, this is a great topic, Sapolucia, because even this uniform that I'm wearing, right? It was, when I started the show, it was something that I was using to tell the story about Liberia Should Rise, right? But if I wear the thing and go outside, legally in the US, I could be arrested. If somebody would know their work, really check me out, they can arrest me for this because I'm impersonating a doctor, right? And I'm not a medical doctor and I'm impersonating a medical doctor. So if the accreditation system is really working, if you are impersonating, you can automatically be arrested. Am I right or wrong?
So to wear it is not a thing in America that you'll be arrested. However, if you use it and tell people that you are a doctor and started performing those roles, then it becomes a crime. But
Okay.
just by wearing it and going in the street and walking around, you can show off whatever you have. But when you start to use it, start to tell people, for example, if I'm not a medical laboratory, because that's my jacket I'm using, I'm a laboratory or scientist. If I start wearing this and start going to pretend like I'm performing tests on people and somebody get injured, because most of the time that's when it happens, right? When people get injured, that's when the spotlight come on that individual. But just for me to wear it and go out in the street, it doesn't, nobody cares. But if I start to pretend or practice, then yes, I can be charged with fraud.
All right, so going back to Liberia, what you are showing, though, this guy practiced medicine for a long time, right? He started killing people before somebody knew he was doing it. Who checks the clinics in Liberia? Even if we don't have an accreditation system, right? Who checks the clinics in Liberia to make sure that even the person operating the clinic is a medical doctor or that person is qualified to operate the clinic? Who in the government checks that? I think that's the first place we should start, because I believe if that kind of checking system was in place, this wouldn't have happened. Because me, Dr. Positive here, I can go to Sepacon and open a clinic with my outfit, everything. The people there don't know that I'm not a doctor, but because I'm pretending to be a doctor, everybody will come see me. You understand? So yes. who check to make sure that when Dr. Positive leave from here with his uniform and everything, I got my ejection and everything, and I go and open a clinic somewhere? Who check to make sure that my clinic is accredited? When we apply, when you're trying to open a business in Liberia, aren't you supposed to go through some requirement? How did this guy open a clinic and he was allowed to, a hospital, and he was allowed to function? That's a question I would like you to chime on. Or if anybody out there can add something to it, that would be good.
So far from what I know, when it comes to every facility, I don't know of the healthcare system. I know Ministry of Health may have an agency that's supposed to inspect area, but what department is responsible, I don't know. And that is why I think it is important that that role be dedicated to a private agency where the government will be the monitor of that group, right? So I don't know of any group that is in Liberia besides the National Health. Some I just forgot that name, but they are the one that do mainly, they focus mainly on pharmaceutical medication in Liberia. Now, how nurses practice, I don't know who is in that area. I know here in the United States, we got Denver, one of those, you got DNV, one of those who do check nurses here. And for laboratory, I know CLEAR. Then we got CAP, which is the private agency, AMT as a private agency, and other agencies that do inspect the lab to know, to define the role of personnel that work there. Now, in Liberia, this is something that we need. And that's why I'm advocating that the government have it as a law. Let it be a law. And if it would take Liberians in the diaspora, and this may be an appeal that I can give to healthcare workers that are from Liberia, that if we have to fund a bill, and some of us are willing to write those bills, if we can fund a bill to implement this in Liberia through the lawmakers, and let it be a law that we should establish regulatory agencies to monitor every healthcare institution before it is open in Liberia, right? Because that will help our people lie. It will save every one of us. It will save the country money. It will save the people. It will save. it will save a lot. It will save people money. It will save lives. In fact, if I can say that. So those are things we really need to look at. I don't know of any institution in Liberia right now that is ready. If I can just go back to the titles that these people have in Liberia, right? One of the things that I have found, and if anybody out there knows, can correct me on this, I have not found job description for people, for most of the people in Liberia. I have not seen it. For example, the laboratory. I don't know of any job description. Like I have not seen the job description for laboratory. Like if you go apply for a job and there is something that the company that you're applying at will tell you, okay, you as a medical laboratory, this is your job function. This is your expectation. So if we don't have those in place, it's difficult to hold people accountable. Because even this guy, and I'm not saying, and I don't want to say I'm trying to give him some pointers, but if there is no job description, you cannot hold this man, you cannot arrest this man, you cannot put him in jail. Because he can tell you, you did not give me, what expectation are you holding into? Right? Yeah, because if for example, if I went to Liberia and they say I'm a healthcare professional, and I told you, okay, I'm a, let's say, laboratory medical technologist, and I start performing other duties, there is nothing to guide me. There is nothing to say, Emmanuel, as a medical laboratory scientist, this is what you have to do, and point out everything that I'm supposed to do. If you can't point that out to me, for me to go by, it is difficult for you to hold me responsible if I made a mistake.
Yeah, so Sapolosia, on that point though, shouldn't that be, I know we're talking about a private accreditation system, right?
Yeah.
But before the private system work, doesn't the government have to have something in place that guide the private organization to work? So for example, if the private organization come and say anybody can just give injection once you go to medical school, the government have to have a check and balance and say no. But if the government doesn't have anything in place and the private system just come, the private system will become the law of the land. You understand? So what I'm thinking is before we start seeking help from overseas, like people like you to go, maybe the government can start gradually saying, even before you open a clinic, we need to see your credential. You have to have a bachelor in nursing, or you have to have something, you know, before you open a clinic. You should have some level of qualification. So at least that would deter people like this guy here, Macaulay or something like that, to say he won't be able to open something like that, because I don't know what level of qualification he had to even open a practice. Right, so I think that's the first place we need to start, because if we don't have a place to start, then anybody can become an accreditation system and just say, all right, everybody can open clinic once they have an associate degree, or once you pay $50,000, you can open a clinic. I'm not looking at your qualification; I'm just looking at your ability to pay the money. You understand?
Yeah. So okay, so let me put it this way, because you have. And all the guys that I have seen so far are a group of people who are representing what they have in Liberia, a group of people who are representing various departments in the lab in healthcare, right? So in Liberia, they got the Liberia Medical and Dental Council. Okay. Now, whether it is represented is a government owned, I don't know, but I know I think I met the president when I was in Liberia 2024. I met the president. He came to one of our programs when I was doing a presentation there. He attended our program. He and I met and we talked and I asked him some of these same questions. What are you guys doing to put things in place? Now, I think they are representing that group and they're serving as the liaison, right? Now, the point you strike about the government playing a part, the government has a part to play, and that's what I'm talking about. Whether since we are in the diaspora and we are part of the Liberian community, we can sponsor a bill. We can write the bill, because that's the governing body. The government set the guidelines. Okay? The accredited agency will be like an enforcer. The reason is to take the burden off the government. That's the reason you use the private entity. You're using the private entity so that the government cannot be the one to sponsor the employment of those citizens. And if the private entity is held responsible, that the government start finding them, they will be forced to enforce the regulations that the government put in place. That's what they do, right? So, for example, the CLEAR is the umbrella for laboratory here. That's the law. Okay, so CLEAR office gave CAP the authority to follow the rules that CLEAR have set in place. The only thing CAP can do is to make it more stringent. CAP cannot relax the law that CLEAR has. No. So if CLEAR said, for example, you need 4 years study before you can perform laboratory tests, well, CAP cannot say you need 3 years. They can either make it harder, right? So the regulatory agency will make it harder than easier. Whatever the government says, the regulatory agency will make it harder. So that way the government has a huge part to play. They will be the one monitoring CAP. They will be the one monitoring AMT, whatever agency you want to establish in Liberia. So like this Liberia Medical and Dental Council, for example, if I can suggest it to them, if there were people who want to protect their career, they want to protect their entities, what they can do is bring up regulation, write a policy. Before you can become a dentist, these are the requirements. Before you can become a dental technician, these are the requirements. And those are things that they will put together. If you want a medical assistant, whatever, pharmacy, you got to describe, you got to have those job descriptions. And then they can create a policy or a law and present it to the legislature. That, for example, you got healthcare committee in a lawmaking or in parliament or in the legislature. Present that to them, right? Present that to them, and if possible, lobby for that to lobby for it to be passed into law so that it can protect and create trust in your institution. Yes, I think that's what is lacking. In that the institution, these people that are part of this institution, they are not really there to make the institution better. Some of them are just there to get the money. So they don't care what's happening to their professions, right? Because for some of us who work in the laboratory, I want laboratory to be the best. I want to be celebrated. But in order for me to be celebrated, I have to put measures in place to protect my institution. Okay. And some of those things is what we got to develop, bring a policy up, bring it to the lawmakers, make a law, and say, look, this law should be there so that when I open my lab, I'm not competing with lower standard laboratory. I'm not competing with lower standard clinics. If they love their profession and they want it to be served at the best standard, that's what we should do. And we shouldn't just talk about our institution. Because when you do love your institution, guess what? It spread out to the country. Right? All right. If you have a good laboratory system, instead of the president going to Ghana, to Nigeria, and other places, he can come to my laboratory. I test a specimen. If the hospital is regulated the same way, they can go to the hospital. They get treatment and get good treatment and get out.
So Rosa Pro ready to start trouble here again. He said maybe the man went to Stanton School. You know? Yeah, but again though, because when you said accreditation, I searched online and I found something on the university's accreditation, right? So the whole accreditation system cannot just be only in the hospital system, because those that are getting the education to become nurses, to become doctor, also have to go through an accredited certification process, right? Because they have their certificate have to be validated by some accreditation body. You understand? Then that body will say, all right, now this person is qualified to be a nurse. Then once that person passed that stage, then they go practice, because their certificate can be revoked if they don't perform well or if they start doing things that are wrong. So the whole thing is it could be a big project, right? But where do we start from? And now this guy Gwen is saying that he's saying it's not the doctor's responsibility to open a clinic. Somebody don't have to be a doctor to open a clinic. A clinic can be opened by a business, and the business can hire doctors, which is completely correct. But still, those doctors that are being hired in that hospital or in that clinic have to be qualified, right? The doctors have to be qualified. So who's doing the qualification of those doctors? That's where the accreditation system come in. Sapolosia, you can chime into that, because
what he's saying is accurate. So for example, like here in the US, okay, so like my program I was teaching when I was teaching at Texas University, there's another agency It falls under laboratory as well. It's called NOCAL. So what they do is they make sure, and they work with CAP and they work with CLEAR to indicate that every laboratory institution or institution that are presenting laboratory or putting out laboratory students, they meet the same criteria that CAP expect of the person when they go to work, or what CLEAR expect of them when they go to work. So they will come and review your passing rate, and not just your passing rate in school, but your passing rate in what they determine as, for my institution or Texas Science University when I was there, we had to pass the ASCP, excuse me, before we can actually practice in hospital. And sometimes you are given 3 weeks to 6 months depending on the hospital that you work at. So if you just graduated from college with a bachelor or associate degree, depending on where you go, normally institution will give you 3 to 6 months to get your national certification. So NOCA will go and check this institution and make sure that the school is presenting the right curriculum. They are following the practical part, because I know most institutions would tend to focus on more theory. I know when I was teaching, I focused more on the practical, because for us laboratory scientists, you are hands-on. So the theory don't really matter, because the theory are just principles and methodology that you will read. But when you get to the lab, it's a total different ball game, because now you are playing with specimen and stuff. So you can't sit and say, I'm going to read that book. That's not what it is. So when I was teaching, I put 75% of my energy in practical, because I was working in the lab and doing this at the same time, right? Because I knew the theory was not going to work. Now, when it comes to the institutions, we have to have that as well. And if the resources are not there, let's say we had a CAP that were inspecting the hospital. Since they are inspecting hospital, you will have an education department in your CAP. If, let's say, we just do that in Liberia, right? So that they can play double role. Now, we as a people who love our profession can tap into the individuals that have the experience outside, especially for Liberia. Liberia needs it. We need it. We need to reach our diaspora. That's what most developing countries are doing. But I don't know why our people don't really want to seek out their children that are in the diaspora to help them grow. Now, Rewa says, bro, I understand what you're saying here. And that's what it comes to. When you talk about most lawmakers have private pharmacies and stuff, it is true. Okay? It is true. Well, would they want tougher accreditation? But guess what? If Liberia had the will, and I mean the will, I'm not using will loosely. If Liberia had the will, they would stop them from leaving the country to go for medical treatment. But Liberians don't have the will. They sit there and clap for them when they're going. They clap for them. In fact, they escort them to the airport to go for treatment. And somebody will say, "But they got to go to India to get treated." But they don't even care about themselves. So because Liberians don't have the will, that is why these people or anybody can just come up, open some kind of clinic, and allow anybody to go there and get killed. I'm telling you, I have been to Liberia and I've gone to hospitals, I've gone to clinics, I've gone to places, and I always say, God forbid, I don't really want to get sick here, because I would rather get flown out of the country, because I know for a fact it's not the same. I visited a few hospitals. You can go there with one condition and you leave there with 3 or 4 different conditions. Because one, sanitation is not practiced in healthcare in Liberia. That is a fact. Okay? So if you have regulatory agencies going and inspecting these places, you will improve your accreditation. You improve your sanitation. Here, hand washing is part of laboratory, it's part of healthcare. It's a must. Hand washing. People take it as a simple thing. But if people come, if the accreditors come or the inspectors come and they're washing your staff, they're not washing their hands, guess what? You fail. That is very important. But those things are not even implemented in Liberia. People overlook it. So because we're not taking these things serious, because we the Liberians in Liberia, we don't take our own lives as important. Rather, we take those people that are on the top, we take their life important more than us. That's why some of these things are happening. Now, before you open a laboratory, yes, it is true. Any private individual can open a laboratory or can open a hospital. That's business. It's true. But I want to carry us back, sometime back, I think it was 2015, 2016, and my year may be wrong. There was a scenario that took place at a radio station in Liberia. Okay. Somebody did not meet the qualification to be the manager of that radio. Okay. And they had to hire somebody from here who had broadcasting experience to be the manager of that radio. station. It was Benda radio, Benda you at the time radio station. Somebody who was there were not qualified. So if we implementing these things to enforce in broadcast, why can't we do it for healthcare? So in order for a doctor or a businessman to open a pharmacy, it's not a bad thing. But the pharmacist that is going to be dispensing those medications should be qualified, should be regulated, should have the license to practice pharmacy to dispense pharmaceutical drugs. Okay, it's the same with laboratory. If you want to open a laboratory, it can be anybody. John Brown, who have no education, you open a laboratory. However, the guy who is going to be your pathologist, your medical director, your laboratory manager, your supervisor, they should have the credential. And that is why you're assigning an administrator in your laboratory. And that person should have a laboratory background. So that when they're hiring the right people. They're hiring a pathologist who's going to review and make sure that the laboratory results that are coming out from the technologist is the accurate one, and they got references to relate to, right? And they have this ranges or studies that they have done to reference to. And then when the result come out, it's being accepted by any international standard, right? And that is what we need to do. So until we start to do that in Liberia, it's going to be a challenge for us to move forward with the healthcare system in Liberia. So we need to start practicing this. We need to start practicing this. I hope that answers your question.
So, Mr. Sapolosia, so I know you explain all these things, though. I keep asking you the question. I think I got my answer here. Where do we start from? If the private system is not in place right now, what can we do to prevent another person from being killed by someone like Dr. Positive? I got my uniform, I look good, my glasses, everything made me look like a perfect doctor from the outside. I can go and show up in some village and open a clinic. Who can stop me? Right? Like this person said, if I have money, I can build a clinic. If there's no accreditation to say the people working there are not should be qualified, who can say that the person they can go and open a clinic in Sepako and say, this is my clinic, I'm here to help people, and I have the money, I'll open clinic. Who can stop me?
So, Dr. Positive, the thing about it is the enforcement. I think somebody said they're calling, but you're not answering. But it's the enforcement.
Let me check.
Yeah, it's the enforcement. So the enforcement is where it is. Sometimes the laws may be there, but again, it comes back to what we want for our country. We cannot continue to put laws on the book and we're not implementing the law or enforcing the laws. So it is the enforcement arm of it. People need to be held accountable. Okay, so we in the diaspora, we can only put our expertise together, provide the resources or the information needed. But unfortunately, we cannot enforce anything in Liberia. We can recommend to them what to do and how we can make the system better, but they got to be willing to accept it. And the Liberians who are dying, they got to be willing. They have to have the will to stand up for what is right. Until they can stand up for what is right, Dr. Positive, we're not going to get anywhere.
Hold on one second. Gwen, can you please call again? Please call again. I probably had the phone on silent. It wasn't ringing. So call. I'm looking at the phone right now. So call. We'll take your call, okay? Go ahead, Mr. Sapole.
Yes. So I wanted to go over the PowerPoint for a little bit.
Okay.
So so if we look at what is the current challenges, and those are things that we got to look at. Okay. We talk about limited regulation of healthcare facilities. I think we're already going a variation of in-care of quality, right? And that's what the problem is. The reason this brother did this thing is because there is nobody checking to see the output of what they have over there. Okay, so somebody can just get up and put things out. Inadequate monitoring of medical practices. There is no monitoring. We're talking about inadequate. I mean, I just being kind of how do you call it, laborer here to indicate inadequate. But if you really look at what's going on in Liberia, there's almost no monitoring of the medical practices in Liberia. And first, one of the things I also want to point out is the nomenclature that are being used in Liberia. They got some people that call it nurse. They are not nurse. Some of them are CNAs. The people who live from here as CNA and go to Liberia, they say the open clinic, then they call themselves nurses. CNA is a certified nursing, certified medical assistant. That is less than a associate degree. Okay, and you got people who calling themselves RNs who may be just an LVN, licensed vocational nurse or licensed practical nurse. Okay,
Can you hold your thought right there? We got a contributor, Mr. Sapolosia. Call your name and where you calling from.
My name's Gwen. I'm calling from Michigan.
Oh, welcome to Liberia Shall Rise. Mr. Sapolosia is all yours. Me, I'm just a doctor here. I can't answer any of your questions, so go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to make a little contribution. I heard you guys because I just came from Liberia 2 days ago, 3 days actually ago.
Welcome back.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say that a clinic or a hospital don't necessarily have to be opened by a doctor. A clinic or a hospital is a business. Anybody can open it. It's just like I work for Hereford Hospital in downtown Detroit. Hereford was a car. He started a car business, a food business company, and he only basically opened a hospital to cater to the needs of the people in Detroit. And the hospital blew up, but you will have specialized, like the doctors and the nurses. Basically, they will maintain the hospital. The accreditation must be compliant, with the state and with the city and all of that. Now, Liberia, we have all those laws that we are talking about. We have it on the book. The problem is implementation, because my mom worked as a nurse many years when I was a kid in Liberia. Before the Civil War, my mother worked as a nurse. She was a nurse in a government clinic on Bushville Island. And I remember the Minister of Health, because I used to work with her during the vacation time. The Minister of Health actually will send people for regulations, just like the Joint Commission will do here for our hospitals. And if you guys are not meeting standards, there will be consequences. Just like here, if Joint Commission comes to your hospital, it's a big deal. If your surgery room not up to par, your laboratory, the laboratory and people, they got their own board that comes and check. All of those things are in Liberia, but the implementation since the war and after the war, the people have just let everything fall apart. Nursing is not being regulated. Medicine is not being regulated. So, not that we don't have those laws. We have it. The people just not enforcing anything. The country is just in a slow motion kind of thing. People just letting things just go as like, this is it, or this is what we find ourselves in. That's the kind of attitude of the Liberian people now. So you find people who they basically are nursing assistants. Some of them are nursing assistants. They just go and open the places. They're giving people injections. Giving injection is a big thing in Liberia. Like, I worked in nursing here for years in America. I can't even tell how many times I get injections. But they give people injection every day, and the people, nobody to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
So those are the things that our lawmakers, they are too busy, like chasing after their own money and their own income. So those things are like literally just falling through the cracks, but they are there for our people, but they're just not being implemented. So if you open a clinic, you must have a doctor. That clinic must have a resident doctor working like on the boards, that when the health ministry come and say, hey, who's your doctor here? John Brown must be credentialed and show his name. But if that can only happen if the health ministry is checking. Health ministry not checking.
Yeah.
Basically, until something happens, then they come up and say, oh, we're checking. Or common example, the Jamila, there's a big clinic there at the ELWA roundabout.
Okay.
They have the imaging, diagnostic imaging in that building. The last time, all that stuff, all the certifications, because it should be yearly renewed, all the certifications expired. It was on school like 2 years ago. MRI, like the technicians, all the papers expired. It's just like me as a nurse here. If my papers or if my advanced practice license expire, I cannot practice. Like, hey, it's a big deal. Your license can expire 1 day for you to go work in the hospital. But all the papers expired and they were still working. professional in the country, so they had to open them. So you see, the country it's like, I don't know, it's like we stuck. So I just thought I should contribute that. I mean, it's not necessarily, all those laws are there, but the health department just not doing anything, and nobody to hold these people accountable, so people will continue to suffer. People will continue to die. I just had an incident before I came from Liberia. The guy that worked with me, he fractured his femur. That was femur, the big thigh bone. He fractured it. We took him to 14 military hospital. The doctors were very professional. They went right away. The doctor did a consult. He brought in an orthopedic surgeon from Monrovia to come and do the knee surgery right away. The nurses totally unprofessional. Now nursing is my area. I was like really taken aback to see nurses being so unprofessional. The other nurse told me that I needed to appreciate them. In fact, basically telling me I need to give them money if I wanted them to be helped. And now I work as a nurse for years in America. Nobody gave me money before I would do my job. So I was like literally appalled. I said, like, what's wrong with these people? But these are the things that our people are faced with. And I don't know. I really don't know how we get out of it, my brother. But thank you for your show.
Thank you for calling on, Mama. Thank you. Sapolosia.
Yeah, so I mean, thank you so much, Miss Gwen. Yeah, for that input. But let me say this, Dr. Positive. You see, some of wear two hats. So most places, and what she's talking about, I can almost tell you, it is not a doctor that employ people in the healthcare system. So we have what we call the healthcare administrator, which I am. I got my master's in healthcare administration. So it is our responsibility as healthcare administrator to employ the doctors, to employ the laboratory pathologists, and everybody else in the healthcare. We will run the hospital, right? So that is another thing. I don't know how many medical healthcare administrator we have in Liberia. I don't even know if they have that program in Liberia. I heard a lot about nurses. I heard a lot about doctors. But when it comes to running hospitals, normally those people who have background either in business administration or healthcare administration, because healthcare administration, we are specific, just that you have the MBAs, right? In businesses, we are that arm of the healthcare system because we understand the healthcare jargons and we can relate that to do the financing and the administrative aspect in healthcare. So that is our profession as well. And that is what is needed. So when she says that you don't have to be a doctor to open hospitals, absolutely right. In fact, you don't even need to be a doctor to open a hospital. You just need to be there as a doctor to work in the hospital. But the healthcare administrators are responsible to run the hospital. Yes.
Yeah, so I think River Cesspool had a question for Gwen, but we let her go. But I just wanted to say something, right? I think the accreditation is important, like we are trying to say here, right, Sapolosa? Because in Ghana, for example, you before you open a pharmacy, right? Before you open a pharmacy, you have to have a resident pharmacist on your staff before they approve that thing. And that person don't even have to work for you. That person just have to agree to put their name on your document, and that person get paid for until your entity go out of business. Because if they remove their name, they're shutting you down. You understand? So that pharmacist's name have to be on your document the day of opening. You can't go open a clinic, a pharmacy without a pharmacist. You understand? So in Liberia, like Gwen was saying, if we allow people to, if I have money, right, I would like to put one clinic in each village in Liberia, right? But now that would be a good thing to help the people. As a business person, I'll be looking at the opportunity, but I have to hire, somebody have to force me to hire qualified people, right? Somebody have to force me to hire qualified people. Now, if that person is not there, if that system is not there, then I can, as a business person, I can say, all right, since nobody questioning me, I can just hire anybody that will get my work done. And I pay them less. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and that is important. And that's why I reference the healthcare administrator, because it is the healthcare administrator who knows the budgeting of the hospital, what I require from a doctor, because he or she is the one that's going to evaluate everybody that the hospital employ, because they run the hospital. Okay. Sometimes healthcare administrators are the CEO of the hospital. Okay, because they are going to do the day-to-day activity. I will evaluate your pathologists, your doctors, your nurses, your medical assistants, because I will set up a team. Because that healthcare administrator will set up an HR that will be, if I was doing that, because that's one of the things I introduced to one of our HRs here. I said, look, I will, right, when I'm doing interview for a department, I want specific, okay, professional specific person in that HR department. So if you're doing laboratory science or laboratory or how do you call it, employment, the person who on there will be giving the technical advice, the technical interview questions, so that that staff member that is coming on board, he or she knows what that staff is bringing, right? And that's why the healthcare administrator is very important in healthcare, because they run the day-to-day activity and they can employ your staff, you know. So the reason accreditation is important, that's why I said what medical accreditation, right? So it's an institution or program or facility to evaluate and officially recognize the meeting specific standards of quality and performance. It ensures that the organization provides healthcare and medical education that meets established benchmark for safety, effectiveness, and professionalism. And that's one of the things Gwen talked about. Ms. Gwen talked about she went to a renowned hospital or clinic in Liberia where the staff there, their certificate had expired. Now, if you have an accreditation agency, their responsibility is to go to that agency and make sure that people license are up to date. That's one. Besides that, I hear every 3 years I have to do 40 CU continuing education CEs hours. I have to have that. With those 40 hours, then I use those certificates to register to re-register or whatever, to how do you call that stuff? To recertify for recertification, right? So I have to do it every 3 years, 40 CEs credits to do that. Now, if you have an accrediting agency, that's their responsibility. They will go to those federal agencies and do it. And that's why we're asking for private, so that the burden can be lifted off the government, because the government does not have the financial strength to implement all of these things or to enforce these things. But if you have private entities doing this, the government eyes on you and telling you have to enforce this, then it makes the process easier.
All right. So Sapolosia, we have a caller.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Riverside Pro. Go ahead.
Yeah, guys. Thank you very much for the show. It's very informative. We had a lot of, in fact, I brought some people on there, but the cop was at that point. I don't need the way she got out of me. But anyway, to a respectable nurse from their SP2 was there. It's a great topic, you know.
Riverside Pro, speak up a little bit.
I said, this is a great topic. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I said that's a great topic, and healthcare is a priority in Liberia. But I have 2 points. My first point, which is relating to the question that I made, or that how do we, since we don't have that accreditation board, or since we don't have a board that determines medical malpractice, and how do they find out? I mean, especially with the case of that guy, because I remember when Martin Collins posted about that guy, there were mixed messages under there. There were people who said, well, that man, I mean, he did surgery in Liberia and he was successful, and then one dude talking about, oh, this guy almost killed me, and somebody said, but the man almost killed you, how you stay alive? How do you know the man wanted to kill you? And yeah, so with this, you know, he was high, he was put out there, but there were people who have positive rating about the guy. They say he carried on some singular surgery, and there were people pregnant with me and they survived. So that's my question, because in the United States, even when you go to do something, it's some paper, it's sometimes like 50-50. I know I had a relative, which I'm not going to name, who really needed, you know, they're supposed to do the surgery, but because of certain conditions, the doctor warned us, but we, you know, we as Africans, we still wanted the surgery to go on because we wanted that you know, the individual to live. But the doctor told us, but we still wanted it. The doctor told us, why? It's anything, you're going to sign a paper. So sometimes those things, like maybe some other people got underlying health conditions, diabetes or something that could lead that. Now, I'm not trying to defend medical malpractice or defend that guy, but I'm just saying, how do we determine? If you don't have, in the United States, they can tell because they have things in place, but you can just accuse somebody of killing somebody and we all knowing, if the person for other issue they have prior to that surgery. And that was my question. How do we find? And my second point has to do with a proliferation of pharmacy. And guys, I didn't want it to be political at that time when I came from Liberia, but I noticed, I don't want people to think that, you justifying things. There are more pharmacies per square feet, or let me say per block, because we used to block in the Western world. Per block there in Liberia they have in the United States. Yes. Well, in the United States here, I have one pharmacy in my area. My doctor will ask me, where do you prefer? The one pharmacy. The next higher pharmacy you see will be like 25, 30 minutes. In Liberia, when I went there, guys, I saw 6 pharmacies in that one area that I live. 6 pharmacies back to back. I'm telling you. With the proliferation of these pharmacies, and then some of them are giving injection. I know we don't get in the United States here, we take shot on our arm. But the people got a whole butt injection, they're still doing it over there. So, yeah. So, it's scary. And I don't want to profile people, but some of the people I saw in the pharmacy I went to that were giving people injection, I don't think they had any, I don't know, guys, but like I said, I don't want to profile them, but Jesus, like, I couldn't see nothing in there that would tell me that they have experience in what they were doing. Maybe they were just taught how to do it on which side of the butt. But yeah, that's just a contribution I want to make. But it's very important for us to discuss these things because, it affects individuals in our country too. So thank you for having me. I'll be following the show.
All right, Real Access Pro, thanks for calling. So Real Access Pro point is on point, right? So when I was growing up, my uncle was I would say a nurse, right? But then people were calling him Dr. Sikpa in the area, right? Because he went to medical school, but he was one of the only practicing person in our area. So he used to give people injection and all the stuff. And I used to stand there and look. So at one point as a child, I actually said I wanted to be like my uncle, right? Because Christmas time, people would bring chicken to him, people would bring stuff to him and stuff like that. So all that enjoyment, I was like, oh yeah, this is a good field to get into, right? But then I was watching him. So at some point, I could have said I would follow his footsteps. If I had stayed in Liberia, I could have gone to school, or if I had been working with him from my childhood all the way to the time I could really give injection, I could have started giving injection, and nobody would have asked me because I was his apprentice, right? So that's the question. If we don't have a government body that is actually checking, can an apprentice like me, because I work under a doctor for this long, or somebody that was in the medical field, can I just start giving services? That's what Real Access Pro is saying, because if nobody is checking, everybody can do anything. You understand? So where do we start from, Mr. Sapolosia?
So I want to be real here. It's not that I'm trying to give preference or give credence to those that are doing it, but the reality of Liberia is this: we have more demand than the supply. That's one.
True. Mm-hmm.
We don't have a lot of healthcare providers in Liberia. That's just the reality, right? But at least we should start implementing something. And like the sister said, before the war, there were these regulations, even in the villages and the towns, there was some kind of eyes on the people. After the war, everybody just feel that we can just do whatever we want to do. But the war is over. Yes, people did that during the war for survival's sake. But let's be realistic. The war is over for more than 20 years now. Since 2003, the war is over. So we need to now start normalizing things and not just think we stay in war, right? And this is where we have to have serious government. And I'll be frank here. I know people will say, Emmanuel speaking out of turn, but we have not had any serious government who want to address the Liberian population problems in the last 20 years since we got out of the war. Not this current government, not the previous one, and not the one before that. Everybody, and again, I said it the last time in one of our shows. In the last 20 years since we ceased fire, only individual getting developed in Liberia, not the country. Only the government officials you see say, oh, the guy was living in zinc shack, but now he built $1 million house. JFK being like that since the war, there is no change to JFK. Redemption, no change to redemption. Phoebe, no change. So only the individuals are being changed, but not the country, not the infrastructure that are needed by the population. And that is sad. So that leads me to say there is no serious government since the war, since the gun subsided 2003. No serious government. You can criticize me all you want, but Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, she did nothing, in my opinion, for healthcare. George Weah, he did nothing for healthcare. Joseph Boakai is there, he's doing nothing for healthcare. Because if they were doing something for healthcare, they would not, none of them would be flying out of the country for treatment. But because they got the ability, they got this opportunity, the privilege to fly out, they don't care. Most of their children are running out of there for education the same way. So education has not improved.
So Sabalosia, before you blast at the government, let me ask you one more simple question, right? We have, let's say, for example, the Minister of Health have a pharmacy. The Assistant Minister for Health has a pharmacy. Then Mr. Sapolosia, American trained pharmacy laboratory technician, go and say he want to open an accreditation board, right? What power do you have to prevent the Minister of Health or to shut down the Minister of Health clinic if this Minister of Health is the owner of a clinic or a pharmacy, and the pharmacy is violating your standards that you know? What power will you have if you open? You said the government or the Liberian people should reach out to those in the diaspora. Let's say someone like you who are passionate about laboratory technician, laboratory, and you go and open accreditation agency. And I said the Minister of Health, the Assistant Minister, the Deputy to the Assistant Minister, all of them got their own little clinic. And you, this person who passionate about your thing from America, you come and open your accreditation board. What power do you have to say, Mr. Colley, working in the pharmacy for the Minister of Health, he's not qualified, he need to stop working? What power will you have to audit people with that much power?
And that's why I indicated that we should have it as a law. If the law is there, because it is the law that is going to establish the private accrediting agency, not just the man who get up and go to Liberia and say, hey, I'm going to open. No, the law has to give me that authority. So under the law, I will be enforcing that. It doesn't matter who is doing it. Now, when they come after me, and that's again, then it come back to a serious government. If the government is serious, whoever is coming after me, the government will go after them. But if I'm trying to enforce what the law states, and they come after me, and the law is not protecting me, or the government, the unserious government is not protecting me, then I'm left with no option but just to let them go. Think about what is going on in Liberia. A policeman arrests somebody for violating traffic law, and then the person stands there and says, I'm calling 102. That means the government is not. I mean, I know we talk about it and we laugh about it, but that will make the government not serious, and that's why I'm frustrated with those things, because you're violating the traffic. It is written, but then the man who is violating the traffic is calling 102, and 102 is going to come and blast at the policeman who's standing up for the law. That's what make the government unserious. That's what make all government, in my opinion, for the last 20 years unserious, because none of them have already enforced the laws that are on the book.
So they would know you think still working in Liberia?
Well, you don't have to look far. You don't have to look far. We see some people get dismissed for doing the bare minimum, and we get some people who still working in government doing some of the worst things. You don't have to look far. And this is not because we want to criticize a government. It's because we want the right thing for our country. We want the best for our country. But we cannot have the best for our country when those who have been clothed with the authority to implement the laws that they are put there to do, they are not doing it. And it comes from the judiciary to the legislature to the executive branch. All of them are doing it, not just one group.
So Sapolosi, I'll let you finish the training you have for us. We're almost out of time now, so I can let you finish your training quickly so we can go. But this is great. Thank you for coming up with this topic, and I hope somebody who gets sense, somebody who got love for Liberia see this and they really try to do something, because I don't know how many of our people will die before somebody take action? You know, that's the question. How many more people have to die before we start taking action? Anyway, go ahead,
Yes.
brother.
So yeah, so the benefit of private medical accreditation, my people, is so it can improve patient care and safety. Because under the improved patient care and safety, there will be a law that will tell you, you as a medical practitioner, you must educate your patient. Your patient is supposed to be involved in their treatment. Now you just come and tell them what they should go and do. You're supposed to educate the patient. If they're taking a medication, tell them the side effect of the medication. But we don't even do that. So patient education is very important. It will create consistent medical standard so that when the guy in Nima County is giving treatment for syphilis, the guy in Morel will be giving the same treatment for syphilis. It's not where I'm giving that. For example, I personally, I went to the hospital. I went to a pharmacy to buy medication, and I told this guy, look, I'm feeling lower back ache. And then he telling me he want to give me amoxicillin. I said, but amoxicillin is for bacterial infection. Why you give me amoxicillin? He said, oh, it will help with pain. I said, no. I did not tell you I'm suffering from some bacterial infection. It causing me pain. That's the only time is they say I have sore gum. And the sore gum I had was caused by bacteria. They can give me amoxicillin to kill that bacteria. And then I can take pain medication to cool the pain down. But I just told you I got backache. What backache got to do with bacterial infection? You know, so those are things that we got to educate our patients to let them know what the standard is. So consistent medical standard, it will enhance the reputation and trust in your institution, better staff training and motivation, and it will attract people to your services that you provide. Those are the benefit for having a private medical accreditation. So these are just some of the institutions that within our region, right? In South Africa, they got the Council of Healthcare Services Accreditation. That's for South Africa. Okay, that's so far in Africa, according to this research that I did, that's the only international recognized one that we have. Okay, they have it in Ghana, they have it in Kenya, they got it in Nigeria. And then in Nigeria too, they have state regional accreditation agency. Liberia, we can do our own. Okay, but in order to do this, we have to be committed to the process. Now, some of the barriers, okay, some of the barriers are this: cost and funding. Now, if we do have the government giving the authority to people, the cost, some private entity will be willing to venture into that market, okay, if they are going to be backed by the government. But one of the main problems here is the resistance to oversight, especially where you have government officials opening institutions that may be practicing mild healthcare provision, right? They got medical malpractices. If they are doing that and they are in authority, it's going to be difficult to have an oversight. Lack of awareness or trained personnel, which is true, because we don't have trained people. People don't really take their job serious. Okay, and again, you need policy and you have legislature support. We should not forget that lawmakers are very important in everything that we do in Liberia. So they need to be part of the system. They need to be part of the process. Okay, strategy moving forward. So the strategy is we want to engage government. Let government be involved. And we engage our diaspora Liberians. Those are the stakeholders. Because we go to Liberia every year or every other year, whatever time you go. And when we go to Liberia, we want to have some healthcare. When something happened to me, I want to be able to run to JFK and get quick treatment. Right? At least get some kind of band-aid on before I can travel to get the advanced treatment. Right? So that is why it's important that we in the diaspora, these are the stakeholders that the government need to partner with to make this happen. We can have a pilot accreditation program, which we can start from the grassroots. We in the diaspora, we work with those in Liberia. We say, look, what are the problems you're facing here? Let us come up with a policy. We'll build a policy. If possible, we can organize ourselves as a group. We'll fund it as a law and implement it through the lawmakers and let it be implemented. And we need the public partner or how do you call this thing? Partnership, right? So that we can work together, not one trying to boss the other, just work together. And we can serve as an advocate. Okay, we can give an advocacy campaign out there that can introduce what accreditation is about. We educate our people about it, that it is not there to harm anybody. It's just to help improve your system so that you minister who got a pharmacy, who got a laboratory, who got a hospital, instead of people going out of the country for treatment, they can come to your hospital. That's money going back into our Liberian economy. That's money going back to your hospital and your clinic. Then, it creates employment for some of our young people. There are a lot of bright young people in Liberia. So going forward, that's what we need to do. In conclusion, my fellow Liberians, accreditation is very essential for quality improvement. It must be private sector driven so that the government can be the eye over that group. As they do it, the government will be watching them and making sure they enforce it. That when they receive bribe, and that's a new system I'm hearing now. According to what I'm hearing, they say bribe is now being called appreciation. Okay, so when somebody tell you appreciate me, that means you should bribe them. There is no such thing as appreciation. If you are paid to do a job, that's what you are paid to do. You shouldn't be asking me to bribe you and using another term. It doesn't matter what term you use. It is still considered a bribe. It is not an appreciation. When I go from a police clearance, you tell me, say, give me $25 before I can process your police clearance. Liberians, if we love our country, we have to work for it. The war is over. We cannot continue to blame the war for what we are doing in our country. We are not the only country that fought war. There are countries who fought war for years and they have gone far beyond where we are. Angola fought war for 25 years. Angola is moving faster. Rwanda had a genocide that was horrible. Today, Rwanda is regarded as one of the best countries in Africa. Our neighboring Sierra Leone, they fought war. They are building their infrastructure gradually and moving forward. Why is Liberia doing the same thing and continue to say, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that, the war, the this? Why are we continuing to blame people? Burkina Faso, we were told that their only resource that they had, a natural resource, according to what we were told, was human resources. Well, a young guy have come in the last 3 years and shown us that that is not true. So we have the resources, we have the manpower. It is time that we start acting serious. Lawmakers, it should not be just by your pocket. Legislature, or judiciary, it should not be just by your pocket. Let us start putting our country first. We're not criticizing government. We're trying to help our people. I know when we talk these things, then people put on their how do you call this, on their blacklist. It is not intended to make you look bad. It is intended to help you. They say a wise man will listen. A wise man will learn. If we want to move our country forward, it is about time that we start working to develop our system, put a system together and enforce those systems to work for our people. Liberia, where are we? If Liberia is to rise, we need to build a good healthcare system. And in order to build a good healthcare system in Liberia, we need laws in place that will implement a private accreditation agency to regulate healthcare system, to streamline and create policies, create job description, and make your healthcare system vibrant and boost your economy. With that, we want to say thank you for all those who contributed. Thank you for your call, Ms. Gwen. Thank you for your call, River Says Pro. Thank you for your comment, Caroline. And everybody else who, if I didn't mention your name, it's not because I don't know you, but please, we recognize everybody. We appreciate everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Again, as we take our leave, we want to say have a wonderful weekend. Tomorrow, join us at 2 p.m. Central Time for a table talk on Liberia Shall Rise. Have a wonderful weekend. God bless you. Have a wonderful Saturday. So, boss, what? So, what the kids say about that stuff?
Which kid?
No, how to call him? Chris. I thought you guys talking last week. How do you guys end?
Hold on one second.